Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Wednesday, August 29th, 2018. Today I'm going to recap last night's baseball games, look ahead to today's games, go over the WNBA playoffs from last night, go over another contract extension given to another key player on a football team. I'll do my MLB national TV rankings. And I'll also finish out the Guess the Lines from the FBS, FCS games that I didn't get to on yesterday's podcast. And let's get going. The Yankees defeated the White Sox 5-4 on a walk-off home run in the bottom of the ninth inning by Neil Walker. As the Yankees improved to 84-48, the White Sox dropped to 52-80. Dellin Betances improves to 4-3. Dylan Covey drops to 4-12. The Red Sox defeated the Marlins 8-7 on a walk-off error that allowed JD Martinez to score. Craig Kimbrell improves to 4-1. Drew Steckenrider drops to 4-3. Boston improves to 91-42. Miami drops to 53-80. The Orioles defeated the Blue Jays 12-5 as they improved to 39-94. Toronto drops to 16-72. Josh Rodgers gets the win in his big league debut. He's 1-0. Thomas Pannone drops to 1-1. The Nationals defeat the Phillies 5-4. This was perhaps the worst loss I've seen from a contender this year. Washington improves to 67-66. Philadelphia drops to 70-62. Coda Glover gets the win, improves to 1-2. Pat Neshek drops to 1-1. Greg Holland gets his first save as a member of the Nationals. This game ended. It was top of the ninth. Go-ahead home run off of Neshek by Anthony Rendon. Bottom of the ninth. Vince Velasquez comes in the pinch run, and he tagged up before the out was made in center field by Michael A. Taylor. So he advances the third early, and the throw was cut off, and then they realized he went early, so they threw back at second base and appealed, and he was out, and that's how the game ended, and that was a very brutal loss for the Philadelphia Phillies. Like I said, that was the worst loss I've seen from a contender this year, although the Yankees blowing the 4-1 lead in Fenway Park on Sunday Night Baseball, you can make a case, was worse. The Indians defeated the Twins 8-1 as they improved to 75-56. Minnesota drops to 61-70. Carlos Carrasco improves to 16-7. Cal Gibson drops to 7-11. The Reds defeated the Brewers 9-7 as they improved to 57-75. Milwaukee drops to 73-60. Anthony DeSclafani improves to 7-4. Junior Guerrera drops to 6-9. Rafael Iglesias gets his 24th save of the year. The Braves defeated the Rays 9-5 as Tampa Bay's win streak ends at 8. Atlanta improves to 74-57. Tampa drops to 70-62. Brad Brock improves to 1-1. Chaz Rowe drops to 1-3. The Dodgers defeated the Rangers 8-4 as they improved to 71-61. Texas drops to 58-75. Caleb Ferguson improves to 5-2. Ariel Gerardo drops to 2-4. Mets Cubs got suspended. That game will resume at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. And it was 1-1 in extra innings. The Athletics defeated the Astros 4-3 as they improved to 80-53. Houston drops to 81-51. Huge win for Oakland. Horacious Familia 4-0 as an Athletic. Roberto Osuna drops to 1-2. Blake Trinan gets his 33rd save of the season. The Royals defeated the Tigers 6-2 as they improved to 41-91. Detroit drops to 53-79. Jacob Junis improves to 7-12. Matt Boyd drops to 8-12. The Cardinals defeated the Pirates 5-2 as they improved to 74-58. Pittsburgh drops to 64-68. Jack Flaherty improves to 8-6. Ivan Nova drops to 7-9. Bud Norris gets his 28th save of the season. So the Cards get the win in Schilt's first game since getting the intern tag removed. The Rockies defeated the Angels 3-2 as they improved to 72-60. LA drops to 64-69. Kyle Freeland improves to 12-7. Noe Ramirez drops to 4-5. Wade Davis gets his 36th save of the season. The Padres defeated the Mariners 2-1 as they improved to 51-83. Seattle drops to 74-58. Jacob Nix improves to 2-2. Felix Hernandez drops to 8-12. Kirby Yates gets his 6th save of the year. The Giants defeated the Diamondbacks 1-0 on a walk-off single by Gorky Hernandez as they improved to 67-67. The Diamondbacks dropped to 72-60. Will Smith improves to 2-2. Brad Ziegler drops to 1-6. Today's game is about to get underway. It's the suspended game between the Mets and the Cubs that I just discussed. Athletics Astros at 2 o'clock. Trevor Cahill and Dallas Keuchel. 2:15. Tigers Royals. Michael Fulmer and Danny Duffy. Mets Cubs. Jason Vargas and Alec Mills. 3:40. Mariners Padres. Erasmo Ramirez and Joey Lucchesi. 6:30, Marlins Red Sox from Fenway Park. Trevor Richards and David Price. 7 o'clock, White Sox Yankees. Rubber game. Reynaldo Lopez against CC Sabathia. Blue Jays Orioles. Ryan Brockie and Alex Cobb. Nationals Phillies. Gio Gonzalez and Jake Arrieta. Twins Indians. Cole Stewart and Adam Plutko. Brewers Reds. Freddie Peralta and Matt Harvey. 7:30, Rays Braves. Diego Castillo and Sean Newcomb. 8 o'clock, Dodgers Rangers. Alex Wood and Mike Minor. 8:15, Pirates Cardinals. Trevor Williams and Miles Mikolas. And 10:15, Diamondbacks Giants. Zach Godley and Derek Rodriguez. Breaking NFL news right now, coming from Adam Schefter. The Packers and Aaron Rodgers are expected to complete their record-breaking extension by the end of the weekend, sources tell ESPN, but the deal is expected to now be finalized and in place before the start of the regular season, per source. That is huge news for the Packers. They had to get that done. Aaron Rodgers is still an elite quarterback, even though he's been hurt a lot. I had him ranked as my number 2 player, number 2 quarterback heading into the season. He's still a great player when he's healthy. He deserves all the money in the world. He's, I bet, going to end up being the highest paid player in football after this extension. He deserves it. So that's a little breaking news on the podcast. WNBA last night. Some good playoff action. 2 great games yesterday. The Dream defeated the Mystics 78-75. The big story from this game was Elena Delle Donne ended up hurting herself. She hurt her knee. And that could potentially be a huge loss down the stretch if she isn't healthy. She put up 27 points. 14 rebounds and 6 assists in defeat. She was the best player on the court. Alex Bentley from the Dream put up 22 points in the win. Big win for Atlanta, by the way. They had to have this game, because down 0-2 going to D.C. would have been an issue. So huge win for Atlanta, although that may come courtesy of Elena Delle Donne getting hurt. You could argue if Delle Donne doesn't get hurt, the Mystics get the win. The Storm defeated the Mercury 91-87 in overtime. This was an outstanding game. This was the best WNBA game I've seen that wasn't a WNBA Finals game in a while. Brianna Stewart, the league MVP, 27 points in the win. Diana Taurasi put up 28 points and 8 assists in defeat. Taurasi put that team on her back. She had a bunch of three-pointers late, and she hit the game-tying 3 with less than 5 seconds left to force overtime. This was just a great game. Huge win for Seattle. They're up 2-0 in the series. I don't think this series is over yet. I think the Mercury have a couple wins at them on their home court. And the Game 3s will be played on Friday night, and I'll pick those games on Friday's podcast. Speaking of NFL contract extensions, Geno Atkins got extended by the Cincinnati Bengals. I believe it was 3 years, $45 million. Good job by Cincinnati locking up one of their key defensive players. He's been a big part of their success when they were a contender a few years ago. It's just good to keep assets around in the league. And speaking of contract extensions, Tyler Lockett and the Seahawks agreed to an extension as well. 3 years, $37.8 million, $20 million guaranteed. Nice extension for Seattle. He's probably their best receiver, although you can make a case for Doug Baldwin. But Lockett's very fast, and he's been a big part of that offense the last few years. Baseball news, Josh Donaldson is hitting waivers, and I'm not sure if he'll be claimed because he hasn't been healthy this season, and it's been a below-average player pretty much when he was playing this year. So I'm interested to see if a contender picks him up and he becomes an asset down the stretch for, say, a team like the Red Sox, who are missing Rafael Devers right now. I could see the Indians being in play for him by using him as like a third base DH type of thing. I heard the Yankees mentioned as a possibility, but I just don't see that with the pending return of Didi Gregorius and soon to be Aaron Judge. I think the Yankees are rushing Aaron Judge, by the way. I just have that gut feeling that they're going to rush Judge back because they AL East deficit's at 6.5. But they've done a good job not really rushing Judge back, but gosh, I think Judge might be back to a little sooner than people would think, and he might look a little rusty. So I'm just saying that wouldn't surprise me, but I just don't see the Yankees being in play for Donaldson. The Chicago Cubs could have been interesting, but they went out and got Daniel Murphy. I wonder if Philadelphia is going to be interested because they always have the tendency to be going out and getting these veterans, most notably Jose Bautista lately. And before that was Asdrubal Cabrera, Justin Bour, and Wilson Ramos. Atlanta should be an interesting location. They have a hole at third base. I like Johan Camargo. He's had a career year, but I wouldn't trust him in a big spot in the postseason. And Josh Donaldson at least has had postseason experience. He's gotten some big hits in postseason play with both the Blue Jays and the Athletics. And I heard somebody mention the Athletics as a team for Donaldson. That'd be interesting. They've traded him back there. That would be a fun story. But they have Matt Chapman at third base. So in theory, they would move Chris Davis to the outfield and use Donaldson as a DH. But we'll see what happens with Josh Donaldson. And speaking of baseball, now I'm going to do my national TV announcer rankings. These are mostly guys from Fox, ESPN, TBS, and MLB Network. I have 22 guys on the list. I'm going to go from 22 to 1. All these guys are good at what they do, but this is just my opinion, and I don't want anybody to be offended if they feel that they're ranked too low. 22 is Kevin Kugler. He does work on Fox. He's really just a substitute announcer for Fox. 21 is Carl Ravitch of ESPN. I just think that Ravitch is better suited as a studio host rather than a baseball play-by-play announcer. Although he's done some college football and college basketball announcing too. But I just prefer him as a studio host or a Sports Center anchor. 20 is Scott Braun. He does Facebook live games for the Facebook airing stream. And he sometimes fills in for Gary Cohen on SNY for the Mets games. 19, Justin Kutcher of Fox. He calls football and he also does baseball. I like Kutcher. He's a fine announcer. 18 is Aaron Goldsmith. He's the radio announcer for the Mariners. He does a great job on TV. 17 is Eric Collins. He's actually the TV voice of the Charlotte Hornets for Fox Sports Charlotte or whatever that is. But he's filled in for baseball a couple times this season and in the past few years for Fox, and he's not bad. 16 is Kenny Albert. Kenny Albert's a great announcer. I just like him better as a hockey or a football and sometimes even basketball. But baseball, he's also good at, but I just think he's much better at hockey and at football than he is at baseball and basketball. But that said, he's good. He's always enthusiastic for big moments and whatnot in any sport. And he's always in the shadow of his father, but I really do think Kenny's a great, great, great announcer. 15 is Rich Waltz, who also does Facebook games for the Facebook streaming thing. He used to be the play-by-play voice of the Marlins, but they got rid of him and replaced him with Paul Severino, who's also a solid announcer. But Rich Waltz didn't deserve to be fired from Miami. That's just my opinion, and he's done a great job on Facebook games and as well as Fox. He's done a couple Fox games this year, I believe, as well. 14 is Adam Amin for ESPN. He sometimes does baseball games for them. I think he's good. 13 is Adan Verk from ESPN. He's also done some baseball this year, although Verk and Amin are mainly college basketball and college football announcers, but they also do baseball, and they're both pretty solid. 12 is Kevin Burkhardt of Fox. He does studio hosting for Fox mostly, but he's a darn good play-by-play announcer for both football and baseball. 11 is Jason Benetti. He does games for ESPN. He also is the TV voice of the Chicago White Sox. And I think Benetti has done a fine job on ESPN as well as the White Sox. 10 is Dave Fleming. He usually does Monday Night Baseball. It's either him or Carl Ravitch, depending on where the games are. But I like Fleming. He's the radio voice of the San Francisco Giants. I think he does a fine job on TV. 9 is Don Orsillo, who is now the voice of the San Diego Padres on TV. He does games for Fox. He does games for TBS. I think this guy's very talented. And I think Nesson made a mistake at the time in firing Don Orsillo. Although I do like Dave O'Brien. He used to do games for ESPN for baseball, but he doesn't do baseball games on ESPN anymore. He just does college football and college basketball for them because of the Red Sox season. He hasn't really done much baseball on ESPN this year, so I didn't include him on my rankings. If I had Dave O'Brien on the rankings, he'd be within like maybe the top 10 because I think Dave O'Brien's really good too. 8 is John Scomby, who I think is a great announcer, both TV and radio. He's the voice of Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN Radio, and he does Wednesday Night Baseball on ESPN on TV. I like Scomby. He's very talented, and he's always in for it with big moments. And he also does a good job calling college basketball as well during that season. Number 7 is Ernie Johnson of TBS. He is so good at calling baseball games. I think he's underappreciated in the business. He's mainly known for being the studio host for TNT basketball coverage and being the host of Inside the NBA on TNT. But Ernie Johnson's a darn good baseball announcer, and he's always enthusiastic for a big moment. 6 is Dan Schulman, who used to be the Sunday Night Baseball announcer for ESPN, now just does occasional games on ESPN and does the Blue Jays on Sportsnet up in Toronto now. But Schulman's a darn good announcer, and he belongs in the top of this list, or near the top. 5 is Bob Costas, who's the lead voice on MLB Network for their showcase games. He's really good at what he does, and he still has it in his bones, and he's always honest and always good with big moments in games, too. 4 is Joe Davis, who does games on Fox. He also is the voice of the Dodgers, replaced the great Vin Scully. I really like Davis, and that guy is a rising star in this business, and he's going to be getting bigger gigs, and I believe that he'll be doing baseball playoffs for Fox this year, as long as if the Dodgers are either not in the playoffs or he'll do whatever series that the Dodgers are not in when they do Fox on the playoffs, because I'm not sure if number 3 on my list, Matt Vasgersian, will be doing Fox playoff games, because he's the lead announcer for Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN right now. Although he still does some MLB Network work, he hosts MLB Central still, I believe. He still calls games on MLB Network and fills in for Bob Costas. I love Vasgersian. He deserved this Sunday night role. I know there was a report out there that Michael Kay was initially offered to replace Dan Shulman, but Kay denied it and just wanted to just do the Yankees. And if Kay took that offer, that would have been fun. And Kay would have had the jiggle between the Yankees and ESPN. So that would have been kind of wonky if Kay ended up getting that job instead of Vasgersian. But Vasgersian's the right guy for this job. I think him, Alex Rodriguez, and Jessica Mendoza are a great trio together. And Vasgersian is really a star in the baseball world, because I absolutely love his enthusiasm. He had a great call on the walk-off grand slam by David Bodie a few weeks ago at Wrigley Field on Sunday Night Baseball. So back to Vasgersian, I do not think he'll be calling the NLDS on Fox. I think it'll probably be Joe Davis on one series and either Joe Buck or Kenny Albert on another. They'll probably pick Joe Buck if it's like Cubs-Dodgers in round 1 or Cardinals-Dodgers or Cardinals-Cubs. If the Cardinals are involved, I expect Joe Buck to be calling Cardinals. Or if it's Cubs-Dodgers, like I mentioned. If it's something big, then I expect Joe Buck to be calling it. If it's something not really that big, then it'll probably be Kenny Albert on one and then Joe Davis on the other. And then Matt Vasgersian will maybe get an ESPN radio assignment, perhaps. Number 2 is somebody that will also be calling postseason baseball, except on TBS, and that's Brian Anderson. He's the TV voice of the Milwaukee Brewers, and he also does games for TBS, and he does games for Fox as well. I believe he'll be calling the ALCS this year on TBS instead of Ernie Johnson, and I think that's because Johnson will be doing NBA work instead. And I think Anderson's outstanding at his job. I believe I had him number 2 on my regular local TV announcer rankings, but he's excellent at what he does. He's always enthusiastic, and the person that'll be calling the other ALDS on TBS is probably going to be Ernie Johnson. It'll be Ernie Johnson on one and Brian Anderson on the other. Number 1 is easy. It's Joe Buck of Fox. He's the voice of Fox Sports. He's the face of Fox Sports. He's been with them since the very beginning. He's the voice of the World Series. He's the voice of the Super Bowl every 3 years. This guy is absolutely a great announcer, and I think he's underappreciated by sports fans and by folks in the media. He's always accused of hating somebody's team, but no, he's always there for big moments. He's had some great calls. I already discussed his call on the Stephon Diggs Minnesota Miracle play. He's had some great calls in baseball. He had a great enthusiastic call when David Ortiz hit a game-tying grand slam in the Red Sox run to the 2013 World Series. He had a great call in the 2011 World Series, Game 6, Cardinals facing elimination. In a tied game, extra innings, David Freese hits the walk-off home run. He honored his late father, Jack Buck, with the call of, "We'll see you tomorrow night." And it was only fitting that that was a Cardinals game, too, because obviously Buck was the voice of the Cardinals, and his father did Cardinals games, too, back in the day. That's it for the national TV baseball announcer rankings. Last, I'm going to finish the Guess the Lines. I got the lines for the FCS versus FBS games. Central Connecticut at Ball State. I mentioned a couple of my guesses yesterday, but I have the lines in front of me for those games, as I mentioned. I have Ball State giving 22.5 to Central Connecticut, and Ball State is giving 14. So I was 8.5 points off on that one. Georgia State hosting Kennesaw State. I have Georgia State giving 23 points, but Kennesaw State is actually giving points. That's bizarre that a FCS team is giving points. I have right in front of me Kennesaw State giving 1.5 points, which I think is lunacy. Savannah State at UAB, I picked UAB giving 35. UAB is giving 34, so I was only 1 point off on that guess. Like I said, all these lines are hard to guess because it's week 1. Missouri State at Oklahoma State. I picked Oklahoma State minus 47.5. Oklahoma State is giving 36.5, so I was 11 points off on that line. Weber State at Utah. I have Utah giving 46. Utah is only giving 23, which I think is crazy. I think minus 23 is a complete steal. I think Utah is going to be one of the best teams in the Pac-12 this year. Southeastern Louisiana at Louisiana Monroe. I picked Louisiana Monroe laying 35 points. Louisiana Monroe is laying only 15.5 points, so I was 19.5 points off on that line. Northwestern State at Texas A&M. I have A&M laying 40.5. A&M is laying 43. So the line was bigger than I thought there. So 2.5 points off. UC Davis at San Jose State. I picked San Jose State to lay 26.5. San Jose State is only laying 2 points. I think that says all you need to know about how bad San Jose State is going to be this year. That's all I have in terms of the FCS FBS lines. It was just Thursday night's game. I thought I had Friday and Saturday, but I do not. So that's it for the podcast today. If we have the Friday and Saturday lines for the FBS FCS games, I'll give them to you tomorrow. I'll recap today's baseball games, look ahead to tomorrow's games. I'll also make my picks for Thursday night's games. So that should be fun. And I'll talk about anything else that goes on in the world of sports. I hope you guys have a great day, everybody.